Hey everybody, this is Tim Hart, branch manager of Van Dyke Mortgage. Welcome to an episode of the Heartbeat Show podcast. I got a guy with me today. I've known him for a long time, Lance Wissinger, and I'm going to give it a shot.
Okay.
Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
That's correct.
I nailed it. Yes.
Good job.
Good to see you, dude.
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
Yep.
It's for everyone out there that doesn't know, that's what you're heavily involved with right now. What do they do? What do you guys do?
So the FFRC, so if it's a little easier, it's FFRC.
And then we want to hear your whole story.
Sure, okay. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, I'll tell you everything.
Oh, FFRC is way easier.
Yes.
Thank you for the permission.
Oh, yeah. So we are an organization that essentially fights for the rights of convicted people, people that have had felony convictions. And our biggest thing that we did was Amendment 4 that passed in 2018.
That was 18, but that was for the voters.
That was for voting.
Okay.
And that gave people that were eligible the right to be able to vote. Normally, you would have to go through the clemency process and get that right restored. And right now, the clemency process is broken. And so what we do is we put this together. This is an organization that's been around for quite a few years. Desmond Meade, our executive director, started this years ago as he was one of those people that was just so affected by the criminal justice system that he didn't feel like there was any other way out, so he started his own thing. And now it's become this movement. Also in 2019, he was one of Time Magazine's 100 most influential people in the world.
Really?
So this has been a huge movement. It's been the biggest enfranchisement in 150 years. This is a Jim Crow law that has been around since the Civil War that eliminated people to ever be able to vote unless they went through the clemency process. So at that timeline, I still wouldn't be able to vote or be eligible to vote for about another 12 years if that timeline was to stay at what it is. So now we got that passed, and now there was 1.4 million people that could have been affected by it. About half of them are eligible now. The state legislature put in place Senate Bill 7066, which turned into law, that says that people have to pay all their fines and fees back before they're eligible to vote. One of the things that we fight for are people that aren't able to pay that back. So we try to help them out as much as possible. We want people, we're an organization that's people over politics. We have people both on the right and on the left. And what we want to do is really give people a sense of belonging. We want people to be part of the community. We have seen that, with people having that sense of belonging, that the recidivism rates will drop because they feel like they're a part of the society again, whereas how it's set up currently, it closes people off and it kind of makes them feel like they're always kind of going to be caught in the current of criminal justice. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to get out of. So we're an organization that helps people do that. And so now we continue to help people pay their fines and fees off. And it's all donation money. Every single dollar that we have spent has been donated from different organizations. There was rumors around that Bloomberg gave us a bunch of money. That is incorrect. He never gave us any money. He tried to take credit for money that was given to us, but it wasn't from him. And so there's been a lot of turmoil. There's been a lot of questions. I know people are concerned about, should people with felony convictions be able to vote? They had their chance. They had they made a mistake. And me being a conservative Christian, I'm very much for second chances. I'm very much for what are the circumstances that led people there in the first place, and how can we help them before it ever becomes an issue to even go to prison. And so our organization, like I said, focuses on giving people those rights and that sense of belonging to the community. Gotcha.
And so you doing this, though, and you just mentioned it about your past, mm-hmm. and so I know you shared this before. So would you mind sharing your backstory?
Yeah, absolutely. So a little perspective, you and I met through real estate years ago. Mm-hmm. And then I got into a couple different industries where I do some drone technology. Now I'm doing some environmental technology. So I kind of grew out of where I started, where we met a couple years ago. But what I've been dealing with for most of my life is that I have a felony conviction.
Right.
So in 2003, I was charged with a DUI manslaughter. I'm not even supposed to be in Florida. I came to Florida from Colorado in the delayed entry program for the United States Air Force. I was going into pararescue, special forces, was playing hockey and in really good shape, living up in the mountains of Colorado. And then I came down here to spend some time with my family as my dad was really sick, and I was pretty sure that was going to be the last time I was going to see him.
This is when? What year?
This was 03.
03, okay, 2003.
Yeah,
okay.
So 2003. And And so you could go in either May or you could go in November. And I had signed up in April. I actually signed up because of the Jessica Lynch story. I don't know if you remember Jessica Lynch.
Yeah, a little bit.
The Marine that she got rescued behind enemy lines.
She was kidnapped.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so the
Not
day
kidnapped, held hostage.
Yeah. So the day that happened was the day I went and signed up. I was motivated by that. Really wanted to be a part of it. And so I wanted to spend that time with my family, so I came down here. Instead of leaving in May, I was going to leave in November. September of that year, I was at a baseball game here in Fort Myers, and didn't even drive to the game. Had a couple drinks at the game, but I left my car somewhere else. Got back to where the car was, had a couple drinks there. It was, between 6 o'clock and 1 a.m. There was a few drinks that had happened, and we went down to another place, and coming home from there, I lost control of my car in Matlacha on Pine Island Road, and my friend was in the car with me. It was a little convertible. We got thrown up and out of the car, and I was thrown backwards of it. He was caught up with it, and I found him laying on the side of the road. And when I found him, I tried to survive or revive him as best I could, and he died in my arms. And so just made a terrible decision and a terrible mistake. Wasn't thinking as the way that I should have been, and it's unfortunate how many people actually still drink and drive to this day. And so I'm an advocate for people not drinking and driving, and so dealing with that, I got canceled from the Air Force. Woke up with a couple of military officers questioning me, wanting to know what had happened. Was officially charged by the Florida State Highway Patrol. And then for 3.5 years after that, I was out on bond waiting to go to my trial. Trial time came up, and I ended up taking a plea. I admitted my guilt to what had happened, and I ended up doing 4.5 years in prison and 5 year on probation. So I had a 10-year sentence and half of it was split. So I only had to do half of it inside. So I did 4.5 years in 17 different camps across Florida.
4.5 years in 17 different, you call them camps?
Yeah. So,
okay.
There's probably some terminology that I might use.
Like camps, huh?
Right. And honestly, going through that process, getting so this much of the story, I'm devastated. I don't know what's going on. I'm responsible for the death of one of my really good friends. My dad is passing away, and then eventually does pass away. I've lost my career. Everything that I had been working for is now gone, and I'm stuck in a state and I don't know anybody. And so during that 3.5 years, I kind of went off the rails and did some stuff that I got worse instead of getting better, because it was just so much pressure. I was.
What, you mean when you got out? You mean?
No, in 2003. So from 2003 to 2006, I was on bond, so I hadn't gone to prison yet.
Oh, okay.
So for that 3 years, thinking like I had this all hanging over my head, and so I kind of got into drugs, was doing some stuff that I shouldn't have been doing, but I didn't do alcohol because that was what got me in trouble. So I was like, as long as I stay away from that, I'll be fine. But there was a lot of mental issues going on. There were suicidal thoughts, just a lot of pressure and depression going on. So I ended up going, and like I said, I took the plea, so I go to prison, and while I'm there, an unfortunate incident happened, and I ended up going to confinement for 60 days. Something completely out of my control, but I couldn't fight it, and so I just had to accept whatever my punishment was. And as I was going through that 60 days, I realized, like, this is the lowest I can get. I'm literally in jail. Like, that's the dumbest thing.
Yeah, you're in jail, right?
Yeah, like, it's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, but it's an only option for some people. And so as I'm sitting in there, and you're not allowed to have any kind of entertainment, but you can have, spiritual books, you can do some research like that. So I got as many spiritual books as they'd let me have. I started meditating, started doing some prayers, started doing all kinds of different introspection, writing myself letters that I still read to this day. And so it was like, as I was at the lowest, I wrote about how good it could be to, like, get out of here. Like, there's only one way to go. And so I started this whole long spiritual journey that is a whole nother story that we can talk about some other time.
Right.
But just a tremendous experience that I got to go through that I'm still going through to this day. And when I realized that was as bad as it could get, then the rest of the entire time that I was in there, I only focused on becoming better. And so I started programs. I was part of a culinary program that another inmate and I were able to represent the United States in a culinary competition. So, like, we were from a work release center and got to go do the Chef of the Americas competition down in Miami, because we convinced the director that we were good enough, and so we went down there and won a silver medal. And so, like, nobody had any idea that we were from a prison kitchen. And so there's an article that's out. It says prison food never tasted so good.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So that was a pretty neat experience.
It's for your new restaurant.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's all prison-based food.
Yeah.
So
you can use that, by the way.
all right. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started that program, and then Toastmasters. I don't know if you're familiar with Toastmasters.
Yeah.
So public speaking forum. I started that. I brought that into that same facility to give people an opportunity to go out and do job interviews. You know, a lot of these guys had never done a job interview. You know, they're really good at what they did on the street, but aren't able to have, you know, conversations with people that are going to hire them.
Yeah.
So I started this. I had 36 guys that joined that group. As far as I know, 33 of them are still home today after 10 years. So we had a really good rate of people that like found some success. But it
You mean success staying out of prison?
Right. But
Okay.
and it gave them an opportunity to really, you know, see what it was like on the other side. Somebody gave them some respect, and somebody gave them an opportunity. And most of these guys had just been like, you know, more things piled on. And once you get caught in, what I call it, the current of the criminal justice system, it essentially turns into a whirlpool, man. You can't get out, and it just sucks you down.
Like a downward spiral.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was trying to be that lifeline to bring as many people out as I could. And once I realized that I was able to kind of do some of these programs and able to like bring some good stuff into the prison system, that's what I kind of took home with me, and kind of working from there. And I always tell everybody that the hardest day of my prison sentence was the day I came home. And everybody's like, that doesn't make a sense. Like, that should be the best day of your prison sentence. But what had happened was the world had changed, I had changed, and I'd worked on all these really good things. And I always say that I had this box of really good ideas and really good processes that I had built for myself. And when I came out the gate, I kind of tripped a little, and kind of everything went up in the air. So I still knew where it was, but I didn't know how to like put it in place. And so the first couple of years were pretty tough. I was in the restaurant industry. Like I said, I was a chef. And so the restaurant industry is not always conducive to a recovery. You know, like it's easy, you know, staying out late.
Late nights.
Yep, late nights, you know, shift drinks if they're available. Like there's always a reason that you can kind of stay out later than you should. And I just wasn't, I couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so I had an opportunity to get into real estate. And then that's when I met you. And had an interesting experience through the real estate industry, and worked extra hard. I had to jump through a bunch of extra hoops to be able to get my real estate license, and so I ended up doing that, which I was super proud of, that I was able to do that and to meet all the criteria. And then that led me into the next few things, and then I eventually met up with the Florida Rights Restoration.
All right, so we know how your story now and how you met up with FFRC, which is you're now an advocate. This is your full-time job, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And so with the one thing I'd like everyone to know out there is like, what does a felon have to do now to get their rights restored, their voting rights restored?
Right. And there's been a lot of questions about that. So as of right now, complete your sentence. So, and there was questions about what that meant, but finish your time, finish your probation, pay off all your fines and fees, and restitution. So restitution is included in that. So once you are taking care of all those things, you're automatically eligible. If you don't have any fines or fees or restitution when you're done with probation, like I had paid all my stuff through probation, I was automatically eligible as soon as I was done. And that's the way Amendment 4 has set up. When you become a felon, you lose your right to vote, your right to hold office, your right to sit on a jury, and your gun rights. Amendment 4 automatically restores your right to vote, and then you still have to go through the clemency process to get the other 2 civil rights back, and then the governor has to give you your Second Amendment right back through another type of clemency. And so it's a long process through the old way, but now with Amendment 4. And so Senate Bill 7066 was brought about through the legislators, and they made it so that if your fines and fees were not paid off, then you had to pay those off to become eligible. And so again, our organization helps people pay some of those fines and fees off if they're unable to. So we make a point that people that don't have the means to be able to pay that, we still want them to at least have access to voting, because again, we're about people over politics rather than thinking that just because someone made a mistake that they shouldn't be able to have a voice in their community.
So what do you think the average fines are? Like what does the average felon have to pay back, you think? Or do you know?
It kind of varies, but what we have set up is to up to $1,500 is what we're paying, and we find that has helped out a lot of people. I think we've helped man, we spent $27 million over the last year of paying people's fines and fees off. 600,000 of that went straight to our clerk of courts here at Lee County. So that's money that's going back into the clerks, going back into the counties, that money that more than likely probably wouldn't have got paid back anyways. But we're looking at about a 2,500 average. But some of these people that owe restitution, there was one woman that was speaking, and she owes $57 million in restitution for embezzlement charges. So like it obviously we can't help her out and pay. And
what does she do?
I don't
SOL?
Yeah. So she has to deal with the responsibility of doing that. So we try to help out, like I said, the people that need it the most.
You're like, call Bloomberg.
Yeah, right. yeah. See if they'll write you a check. But all the money that goes towards fines and fees was all money donated from people. We've had Michael Jordan gave us money, LeBron James gave us money. The bus that I rode around on, Ariana Grande paid for us. So we made some really good connections with some of the celebrities and stuff. So we got some really good notoriety, but we're really part of this big movement. And me as a conservative, I have, there's a lot of pushback because people don't assume that, felons are going to be conservative. And surprisingly, there's a lot more of us than there are.
This is where I'm very glad you brought this up. So, like, I'll just say it, like, I thought the same thing.
Yeah.
When I heard this story coming out, my thought was that, oh boy, what's the, almost selfishly, like, what is the political breakdown? Because anymore when I look at things in the news or, politics or whatever, everything is so political, and it's so hard to look at something and say, oh, they're just doing this, for the good. Like in the back of my mind, it's cynical, anymore the way it is. You're like, what's the end game here?
Right.
What are they trying to do?
Right.
And so what do you say to someone like that that's like, oh yeah, we're going to make all these people whatever able to vote and they're going to vote our way now or whatever?
So
you know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's a lot of rumor around that, and that people assume that if we're paying their fines and fees off, like, you got to go vote.
They're going to vote your way, right?
But the funny thing is like, we have people come up and they're like, no, we're Trump supporters. I'm like, yeah, me too. And they're like, wait, what? And so it really throws people off because, like, I tell my story and I talk about being a felon, and then people don't understand that, like, there are conservatives, and there's a lot more conservatives, affected by the criminal justice system. You can look at the demographics of the United States, and 50%, 1 in every 2 people knows or is affected by someone in the criminal justice system. So it's really a lot more far-reaching. And when you hear the term felon, it's not necessarily what you see on TV or in a movie. It's not, Con Air. When you hear the word felon, man, like, I made a mistake. I made a terrible decision one time. And, like, I wasn't out running the streets. I wasn't out, trying to do anything terrible. I made a bad decision on a night of hanging out with my friends, and I ended up with felony. I mean, you can get a felony if you release Mylar balloons, and the sheriff decides he wants to. He can come arrest you for releasing Mylar balloons because they're hazardous to the environment, and so you can get a felony for that. So, like, there's a lot of different ways that you're affected by it, and a lot of different people that are affected by it. So, looking at the demographics of where people come from, those are what you're looking at. Like, it's about 50-50. It's about what you see in your community is what's going to be affected by the criminal justice system, because that's where the people are coming from. I actually went to prison as a Democrat. Like,
you're telling me this. Yeah, tell this. This is neat.
So I grew up in a Democrat household. My dad was a transportation union.
Big union guy.
Yeah. Okay. He worked for the railroad, and I lived in Toledo, Ohio, halfway between Chicago and Pittsburgh. So, big hub, 75 and 80 intersect, so there's a lot of transportation going on there. And so he was a big union guy, and so that was the household I grew up in, man. Like, we didn't like Reagan, and now as a 40-year-old person myself, I was like, that seems weird that, like, it was just so shut off. And then I went to prison, and I started to have conversations, and I started to do, like I said earlier, the introspection on myself and really what my values were. And then I started to realize that there was a lot more people around me, and several times in my life, I heard people, shut up and just admit you're a Republican. And I was like, I'm not there yet, I'm not
like,
there.
You wouldn't admit it?
Right. Well, and it wasn't that I wouldn't admit it.
Bring your family shame or something?
Right. But I didn't understand. I didn't really understand where I landed. And I still, to this day, like, this is still a learning process for me, because the biggest thing that I learned through my experiences is that I'm always going to be learning. Like, I always need to improve myself. I'm never going to hit a point where I'm like, okay, I'm done. I read 496 books in the 4.5 years that I was in there. So,
jeez.
and as I'm starting to kind of get that conservative mindset, the idea was that a taxpayer was spending $27,000 a year for me to sit on a bunk. I didn't have to do anything else. They might have told me to go pick up cigarette butts outside, or they might have told me like I had to go rake leaves or something. But for the most part, all I had to do was sit on a bunk. So I educated myself. I went through the entire college and high school reading list that I had blown off when I was in school, and I started to learn a couple different languages, and I started to reteach myself some math skills that I didn't pay attention to in high school. And so I took advantage of that time. But like I said, as I was having these conversations and meeting more people, I was really surprised at the number of conservative people that were in jail. Yeah, that were willing to have that conversation. Because I was the same way. I just assumed everyone was probably a left-leaning liberal, and that wasn't the case at all. So when I came
indifferent.
And that's really the other thing, is that the parties have changed so much, and now that people have the opportunity to vote, some of them haven't voted in 20, 30, 40 years.
Oh yeah.
And so, if you look at both parties really, and what's happened 100%. In the last 40 years, there's been a huge shift in both of them. And so I get to go have these conversations with people like, man, I can't vote. And I'm like, why not? I got a felony. I was like, well, yes, you can now. And then they're like, well, I don't even know who to vote for. I was like, well, let's have a conversation. Let's sit and talk. And what has been really surprising is the neighborhoods that I've gone in to go do that, because I'm not going into neighborhoods like, knocking doors in Northeast Cape Coral or down in Naples.
Right.
Like, I'm going in and I'm knocking doors in
Lee County's very red.
Yeah.
So, in case you're wondering.
But like I'm in some of the lower income areas of Miami. And man, I got people rolling up on me, and they assume that we're out knocking doors for the Democrats, and they're like, we want Trump. I'm like, yeah, man, me too. I want that too.
But you're just going door to door to say, hey, you're registered. Have you voted? Right. That's it.
Yeah, it was just a get out to vote movement, and so we weren't out to support any specific candidate in any race. But what we were doing was if somebody wanted to go vote, we were going to help them do that. And it's a really neat thing to see when it didn't matter about party, but you could have neighbors go together and vote for different people, but still ride together and be like, hey, yeah, we went and voted, And so it was really bringing back this sense of community and a sense of like being a part of society. That as the doors have been closed to so many people that have felony convictions just because one, they made a mistake, and two, they have a label that they can't get rid of. And so I'm out advocating more so even than the right to vote, but more to understand that people make mistakes, man. And having that felony conviction on my record is terrible. I hate that it's on there, but I did it. I made the mistake. I made the choice. I accept that fact, and what I want to do is to show people that I have found some success by simply accepting that fact, by getting over it. I hear all the time people like, I don't know how you're so comfortable talking about all the things that you went through. But that was the opportunity that was given to me. I had planned on having this huge career through the Air Force and coming out and then potentially running for office or something. And then it all came crashing down. But now, I tell people all the time, like, if I could change anything, I'd bring my friend back in a minute. Just give everything up and give my friend back. But I wouldn't change anything else, because of everything I went through and everything I learned made me who I am today. And I really like who I am today. I really enjoy being able to help my community on a much larger basis than I ever dreamed I'd be able to. And so now I get to go statewide and tell my story and give people hope and focus on second chances. I'm honored enough to be able to be on the Lee County Reentry Task Force. So with the Sheriff's Department, I'm in there helping people as they come out to reacclimate to society. And the first time I went in there, they asked me to introduce yourselves, and so I stood up and said, "Hi, I'm Lance with the FFRC, and I really appreciate you guys not taking me upstairs this time." and everybody thought it was funny, but like, I use humor and I use I'm trying to break those barriers down. I was at a party so it was a Christmas party in 2019. And I was talking with a group of people, and somebody had brought me over to introduce me, and they're talking about I worked on Amendment 4. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not for that at all. Like, I don't think they should have the right to vote. And I was like, well, you don't think I should vote? She's like, no, I was talking about you. I was like, I'm a felon. I was like, I'm one of the people that works.
Yeah,
on this,
right.
you know? And she's like, oh well. And so then we had the conversation, and unfortunately, I get more pushback from people within my own party. And I'm okay with it. Like, I want people to understand. I want to go.
You mean your own, like, where you lean politically? Right. Okay.
And so I get a lot of pushback from that. But I only attribute that to not understanding, not knowing, and just kind of going along with, stereotypes that have happened.
Yeah.
It's very easy to fall into that unless there's somebody like myself going out and changing the narrative. It's always going to be that way. So, like I said, my biggest thing is to take our organization and really focus on people and give back to my community as much as possible.
How many other states in the U.S. are like Florida?
As in?
With the felony voting?
So there are, I believe there's only 2 left that disenfranchise people for life.
Oh, so everyone else except those 2?
We were one of only 4 at one time.
I didn't know it was that. I would have guessed more.
Yep, nope. There was only 4 when we changed it, and then
Texas and Arkansas.
No, they already had it. So it was.
Dang.
It was.
I was just throwing a guess out there.
Don't quote me on the 3rd one, but I'm pretty sure it was us, Iowa, Kentucky, and I think Mississippi.
Okay.
And I'm not 100% sure on Mississippi, but Iowa I know has been following kind of our lead, and they've started to change some things out there. And so that's changing. But yeah, everybody else in the country had already done that. In fact, in Maine, you can be in prison and vote.
Really?
Yeah. So there's some extremes,
right. It's on death row.
Right. So
there you go, buddy.
There's some but again, it's all state by state. And so with Florida, I will say one of the biggest things that happened, our clemency system is broken
in Florida.
In Florida, it does not work. And it used to kind of work. So Jeb Bush approved. Excuse me. Jeb Bush approved 60,000 clemency cases in his 8 years. Charlie Crist, 120,000 cases. When it came to Rick Scott, it was just over 8,000. So we went from 120,000 in 8 years to just over 8,000, and it created this huge backlog. So we went from being able to get our rights restored to now. So my incident happened in 2003. I went to prison in 2006. I came home in 2011. I got off probation in 2016. I am eligible for clemency this February. I still have another 10 to 12 years of wait list before I even get in front of the governor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And that's just to get my right to hold office and my right to sit on a jury. So that doesn't even include my gun rights. So because of Amendment 4, now I've had the opportunity to take part in this 2020 election, which was huge and amazing to be a part of because of like what it meant. And so now I'm 14 years ahead of schedule of where I thought I would be, which I honestly never thought I'd get to that point.
For voting, but like gun rights, you still don't have?
No.
So that amendment was just for voting, not
just for voting, yep. So, and people ask, like, why didn't you ask for everything? I was like, well, because we're not stupid, like, voting is our most important thing. Like, now we have a voice. Now we're able to be a part of our community. Now when I go and I talk to our local legislators, my voice matters because I have that vote. I can go in and I can be like, mark the box. And so when I got the vote for the first time ever this year.
Yeah. So how was that?
Emotional.
Was it?
Exciting. Yeah. So the day I registered to vote, January 8th, 2019.
Jeez, look at you, man. You know the exact date.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the day that became law that we were able to do that. And I went in and it was just, I told everybody, it was like a second New Year's. It was a week after New Year's. I was like, I got to celebrate this whole second New Year's and had like a big breakfast and went to got to see the...
You made like a day of it.
Yeah. And the supervisor of election had a whole thing set up for us. Like it was super cool. NBC, like I think we had 4 or 5 different news.
Tommy Doyle?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and Tommy Doyle's been amazing. Like
dude,
he's been such a great help to us.
We are blessed, man, Lee County, because our elections crew, shout out to him and my friend Jen Erickson. She listens to this whole thing. She works for him too, but they do a great job.
Yeah.
Compared to the previous people, whoever that was, I forgot already, but we don't want to dog on them. Sorry. Your day. No, your day. Go back to your day.
It's been really exciting to like see Tommy Doyle like out at other events and stuff, and like to know that I'm a part of it now.
Yeah.
It was so cool. And so as I went through the primaries, so the presidential preference was the first time I actually ever got to mark a check, fill in the little...
For the primaries?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was the first time I ever did any of it. And so that was pretty cool, and took my little picture. And then we got into the actual primaries, and that was like the first time where I had done research and I had talked to almost everybody on that ballot, and like I was very secure in like knowing like who I was voting for. And then for the general election, at one point, like I started tearing up, and
In the booth, or like walking up, or when?
Like no,
maybe the old
I'm
ladies up front are like, "Let me see your ID."
So I'm in the booth, and I'm looking at the names, and every name that I circled in, like I knew who I was voting for. Like I had talked to each of them at some point, and I was just like filling it in. I was like, man, this feels so good to be a part of this. Then I look up, and my boss is across from me, and he looks up at me, and he saw the tear, and then he just lost it. Like, we kept walking out, because he hadn't voted. Man, I don't think he's voted in like 20-some years, and I'd never voted. So we walk out together, and there was like 40 of us had marched down to the Carrie G. Robinson Center at Stars Complex, and that's where I voted. I did early voting, and like I walk out, man, and there's a couple different news crews with us, and then there's 40 people standing across the street, and everybody's like cheering and screaming. I was like nobody gets to do this, on their day of voting. And so like I kind of just broke down, man. I was like, this is so amazing. Like, this is what we had been working for so long, and to know that my voice mattered.
Yeah, it's something that all of us take for granted,
Yeah.
or don't even use.
Yep.
Does that make you mad? What do you feel about when people are like, whatever?
So the conversation that I have with people, because a lot of the times when I hear that, like, I'm not voting, my voice doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, they focus solely on federal elections.
Right.
So they're like, I don't want to vote for either one of these candidates because I think they're both terrible. And I was like, that's fine. That's your understanding of how the political arena works. But what you should be paying attention to are the people that make the decisions that affect your backyard.
Correct.
You should be paying attention to your city council members, your state legislators, your county commissioners. Those are the people that are in your neighborhood that you can go talk to on any basis and just be like, hey, I can call them up and be like, I have a question, and I know that I'm going to get an answer within a few days or so. So I always encourage people. I was like, even if you don't like any of the candidates in the presidential election, go vote for your neighborhood. Go stand up for the ideals that you have. And I have found that by doing that, I've had a lot higher success rate of people actually going out and voting. And again, I'm not out trying to pressure anybody specifically on one side or the other. Even though I'm a known conservative, even within my own circles and within my own organization, like I'm the conservative person that we go and focus on. But I encourage people to just get started. And by even encouraging people, that has started the conversation. And now we can sit down and now we can talk about, well, where do you stand? Where do you sit? How do you feel about this particular thing?
Right.
And so rather than being like, did you vote? Did you go vote for Trump? Did you go vote for Joe?
Yeah, Biden, yeah.
And it's like, I don't care. Instead, it's like, did you vote? No. Why not? Because I don't think it matters. Okay, well, let's talk about what does matter. And I've found that a lot of people that you wouldn't expect have kind of come over to at least an understanding of the conservative values of the Republican Party. Or I just run into people who are like, yeah, no, I'm already there. And it's like, oh, well, this is not a neighborhood where I expected you,
Right.
And it's so weird. And then, of course, looking at it from a real estate perspective, they talk about redlining and all that kind of stuff, all these illegal things, but that's kind of how society has worked for so long. And not that it's happening like specifically on purpose now, but you can just kind of see like what neighborhoods are low income, what neighborhoods are getting attention, what neighborhoods have been financially stable for so long, and those neighborhoods are not necessarily where I want to go. I want to go knock, I want to go knock Dunbar, Lehigh, North Fort Myers, the people that are getting moved around, and I want to go talk to them and find out like what are their biggest issues, what are the things that affect their daily lives. Because we know what people with money, like they have the means to talk about what they want to fight for, what they want to support.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily get to hear what the homeless guy living on the corner. How did he end up that way?
Yeah, you say that's funny because we were so. Where I go to school or my kids' school and work, it's like 41 Hancock Bridge area, then over the bridge, and it's like every day.
Yep.
I mean, we see 6 or 7 different homeless people,
yep.
That are there, and I always tell my kids, I'm like, they got some story,
yep.
and a lot of them could just be 1 or 2 bad decisions,
yep.
In their life they got in there.
I very easily could have ended up there if I had not taken the time to work on myself. And in fact, I just had this conversation 3 or 4 days ago that had I not made that shift in my thinking, I probably would be back in jail, because it was so easy to anything I could have done could have put me back in jail. If I would have violated probation for any reason, back in jail. If I'd have violated it twice, it would have been back in jail for the rest of my time. Like, I wouldn't have just been done 60 or 30 days. Like, it's really easy for that. And sometimes your officer doesn't like you. Like, I had 3 really good officers and 2 that just hated me for no reason whatsoever.
You mean probation officer?
Yeah. But I always understood, like, I always look at, no matter how somebody's coming at me, what's the reasoning behind it, and I try to understand where they're coming from. And to be a probation officer is tough, man. Like, you got to deal with some pretty crappy people.
Cops, probation officers, all that stuff.
And so, again, I try to come at everything, even when it came to living in the prison system, I come at everything with some respect and some understanding. And so I was one of the most respected and probably well taken care of people in the prison system because of how much respect I showed to everybody else around me. And I had one of the few paying jobs, so you don't make much money in prison even at a paying job. It's like 17 cents an hour. But I had the ability, I was lucky enough to work in the staff canteen up front, and so they gave me a decent paycheck every month, and I would take that and I would give it back to the guys in my dorm. And I didn't necessarily need it. I had plenty of stuff, and I come from a good family, so like they were able to take care of me. So that money, I would go buy sodas and snacks or whatever, cigarettes for the guys, and they'd be like, "Oh man," like, and it's usually like, "Well, what do you want?" I'm like, "I don't."
Yeah, right.
I don't want anything. All I want to do is I want to be able to sleep safe. Like, just make sure nobody messes with me when I sleep. When I got the whole dorm watching my back, I don't have nothing to worry about, So,
like, what do you want? Leave me alone. That's right.
Yeah, right.
Just help me.
But because I was able to do that, because of really, using a diplomacy skill, more than anything else, I was able to like find out like what makes these guys tick, what makes them go back. And there was a kid that I was in there with, and it was his second or third time down. And he had some issues, some mental and some physical issues that, mental health issues that he needed to get straightened out, and like just never had an opportunity, and was just instantly angry all the time. Like, first reaction to anything that wasn't his way was anger. And I didn't respond to him with anger. I responded to him and just bear hugged him. He was literally with me, so like I was able to like hold him, and he just was like freaking out. And then finally I was like, "I'm not letting you go until you calm down." I was like, "I'm not going to fight you. That's ridiculous. I'm not losing my game time on you." Like, I'm not putting myself in jeopardy, but what I'm going to do is we're going to sit here and we're going to figure out what's up. And nobody had ever done that. And so finally he like broke down crying, and we sat and we talked, and he ended up becoming one of my best friends. And like, I made him my sergeant at arms for my Toastmasters group. And so like, I gave him a little bit of power and a little bit of responsibility. And so he took it and he ran with it. And now he got out the day before me. He's still home after 10 years. Like, has never been in trouble again. He's married. He's working 3 jobs. Like, he's doing pretty well. Like, he's not he's no Elon Musk or anything. But like,
all right,
he's doing really well.
Yeah, cool.
He's not back in prison. And if I helped one person not go back to prison, then I felt like I did a good job.
Gotcha. And so this is off topic. What's the most real, since you've been there, what's the most real prison movie you've seen?
So the one.
Please say Shawshank, because that's my favorite movie.
Well, it's not a movie, but the one thing that I can't watch because it really made me feel like I was back in there was Orange is the New Black.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like just.
Oh, like it brought like bad memories instantly. Like, people can't watch war movies anymore.
Like it was a little too close to home. It was kind of like, I really feel like I'm back in right now. And so and it was only season 1, and I was like, I don't need to watch this.
So that would probably be the one then.
Yeah.
If it brought that memory out of you.
But like a lot of the movies, like Shawshank is good, but it's not necessarily factual based. There's some.
It's older too.
Yeah. And again, the 20s was definitely way different.
A little bit.
But the biggest thing is like, man, they make people so bad in prison. Like anybody that's in a prison cell, it's always like there might be the one good guy. Like The Great Escape or something. There's the one guy that you're like rooting for.
That was it, because you got framed or something, right?
Right. But it's not like that at all, man. It is literally sitting on a bunk, waiting for your time to go home, and hoping nobody messes with you. And for the most part, everybody wants to just go home and just want to do their time and be done with it. There are some crazies. There are some people that probably should be in there. But 95% of the people that are in prison are coming home someday. And and that they want to get there. They want to be home. The 4.5 years that I was gone institutionalized me enough that like I still do certain things in a way that I learned going through that it's the people that have been in there for 15, 20, 25 years that are coming home. Look how different it's been in a year. Imagine being gone for 20 years and coming home to this.
Solid example.
Yeah, so having that opportunity, and so again, me having the first-hand experience of going through the prison system, being in so many different camps, and being able to have success on my way out, like that's what I want to do. That's the opportunity that I want to give to people. I want to stop people having those circumstances that led them to the criminal justice system in the first place and keep them from going back to jail.
Awesome. So anyone that's listening to this, what's the best way for them to either get involved or learn more?
So we have a website, www.floridarrc.com. So
FloridaRRC.com.
Yep.
We'll put the link in the show notes.
So that's the easiest way to find everything about us. You can text information to 82623. So you can text fines. If you are a felon and you think you're eligible to have your fines paid off, you can text fines, and we'll start digging into that to see if you're eligible. You can text fees if you want to donate. You can text register if you want to become a part of the organization. And so, like I said, that's 82623 that you can text to that.
That's on your website too?
Yep. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all this stuff's on the website. Easiest way is just go to the website. And then we're building a chapter here in Lee County. We actually had started it, but then I got pulled away because I got a promotion and moved into other things. And so it kind of fell off. But we got about 30 to 40 people here in Lee County that have been part of the chapter at one point or the other. And so I'm trying to get that back together. And really that's all about second chances. That's all about coming together as a group and support. It's literally a support group for people to come together. And it's a support group for people that have been through the criminal justice system, or families. We have a returning citizen is what I call myself, rather than a convicted felon. And it sounds a little better, and it took me a little while to get used to it. So it's like I don't want to take anything away from what happened to me, but at the same time, I really do want to be a returned citizen. So like I can be okay with that, and then the directly impacted. So any family member of someone that's been affected by the criminal justice system. So we come together. We focus on trying to find jobs, trying to find whatever issues they have. There's certain jobs that we can't work because of having a felony, regardless of what the felony is. Just automatically disqualifies you. Property management organizations have issues with renting to felons, regardless of what their conviction is or how long ago it was. And so we're trying to break down a lot of those barriers because we want people to have an opportunity to find success. And I think something that I hold dear, and one of the things that I like about the Conservative Republican Party is that we are about opportunity. We are about pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and getting it done. And so I've been able to do that, and I try to be an inspiration for others to do that.
Good job, man. Good job. Hey, if you guys want, make sure you learn more about Lance. You got anything else you want to add? You good?
You can follow me on Facebook, Lance Wissinger on Facebook. So
hook him out.
I share a lot of stuff on there.
You do put a lot of stuff out there. Yeah, he's an animal. But make sure you check out the website. Help. Reach out however you want. Dude, you killed it, man. That was fun. You did great. Congrats to you on where you're at in your life and everything you got going on, man. You could tell you're on the right path and you're doing what you feel is right. Yeah. So awesome, good for you.
Next time I have to come back and tell you about all my personal business stuff.
All right, we'll do another time.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, well, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate you. Don't forget, like, share, and subscribe. By the way, if you made it this far, if you know anyone that's been affected, as a felon, directly impacted, forward this on to them. Let people see, what he's done and what they're doing, and it may be able to help you. Again, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all that fun stuff, Facebook. If we can help you own a home, that's what we do for a living. Give me a call, 239-437-4278. Thank you for watching. Dude, appreciate it again, man. Great job, dude.
Thanks.
Yep. Bye-bye, everybody.